Hello and welcome to the Winning Agendas coverage of the International Twilight Struggle League. My name is Jesse Marshall and I'm here with the second game from the playoffs of the International Twilight Struggle League, which is very exciting, and for the first time with video for the Twilight Struggle coverage. So it's good to be here. And to mark this special occasion where we are going to be playing as the USA, as you can see from the game preview here, we'll go ahead and get this game started. I have brought along something very special to help us in our campaign. So we've got the inaugural speech, or the inauguration speech, I should say, from President John F. Kennedy from 1961. All the way from my last trip to the USA. And who knew it was going to come in handy for an event like this? So there we go. Something to light us on our way as we try and reclaim the world for the forces of the free world. So, what are we looking at here? We'll say good luck to our opponent. Welcome to everybody who's joining us on Twitch today. The stream is 10 minutes delayed, so for those of you who are commenting or commentating, feel free to join in the chat, in the Twitch chat, but I won't be able to respond immediately because obviously I'll be 10 minutes ahead of the play, but it'll be interesting to look back and see your comments as the game goes along. For those of you watching on YouTube, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to give us a bit of support, and hope you enjoy this match. So let's have a look at our hand before we commit our last influence. We've got a reasonable hand. Yep, no worries. Got a reasonable hand. We've got CIA, which we're going to keep in the deck, so we're not going to play that on turn one. We've got De Gaulle, Cambridge 5, and Fidel, which does mean that there's a reasonable chance that our opponent is going to have one of the D cards, unfortunately. Cambridge 5 is going to be one that we can get out of the way once we've played Asia scoring, but also as late in the turn as possible so we don't indicate to our opponent that we've got no scoring cards left. Fidel, I'm pretty happy to send to space, and we'll probably UN intervention De Gaulle. So that's going to be the structure of it. I don't think our opponent's going to headline Decol or D-Stal. They could headline Decol, in which case Asia scoring is a little more risky, but I'm going to... they may have defectors. The fact that we don't have defectors means that headlining Asia scoring is more risky. Special relationship is a possibility. We want to keep CIA created in the deck, as we said. 5-year plan is our only... Well, we've got free influence from De Gaulle, thankfully, because of UN intervention. But 5-year plan, I don't think we want to headline here. Vietnam revolts is also an issue if we headline Asia scoring, so I'm a little less keen to do that. Perhaps we will just headline special relationship here. I think it's safer. Okay, well, that's still handy because now we get to at least have an influence into France. Since they're going to remove 2 from Italy, we can place 1 into France, so we've still got adjacency to fight for Italy if it doesn't get completely emptied, although no, they get to remove the 1 from the UK, of course. I should have thought of that. So coup on Italy, that's unfortunate, and it's exactly the result that we didn't want. Okay. So we'll play... That indicates that our opponent probably has Europe scoring. So what I'm actually going to do instead is try and play for Asia domination ourselves if they're going to look for Europe. We do have to be careful of blockade though. So this is going to be a little bit awkward. We're going to have to play 1 into France. So I think we're going to use 5-year plan here. So we'll play 1 into France since we want Italy adjacency to force them to respond. We'll place 1 into Malaysia, or perhaps we'll place 2 into Afghanistan. No, perhaps we'll just place 1 into France. I think perhaps going for Asia domination is a little too much to ask, considering how fragile the battlegrounds are for us on turn 1 if we were to play into Pakistan or if we were playing to South Korea. So let's just go 1 into France at this point, and leave ourselves a couple of options for how we can respond. Assuming that our opponent doesn't Suez Crisis us here. Okay, they don't, so they play 2 into Italy, presumably. It means that we can try and fight them for the non-battleground countries in Europe as well, potentially, since we can fight them on country count, basically. So perhaps we want to... I do think we want to take France, especially since we've got de Gaulle. They could have... they could have Suez Crisis, but I think we'll take that risk for now. And in any case, if they played in an action round, it's kind of a bit of a wash. But to guard against it being too much of a problem for us, we might play 1 into Lebanon. We'll play 1 into Malaysia first, I think. Could have been worth, since Defcon is at 4, playing into Afghanistan as well there, just to maintain our presence in that region, since the weakness for the Soviets of playing with the strategy they have is that they can they can give us the access to this region. So I think we're going to take that now. We'll place some influence in Thailand just for the victory point, and then I think in Afghanistan... no, we don't want to give them the coup on Thailand, actually. Perhaps we'll just take Afghanistan, because that is a victory point anyway, and it's less of an attractive coup target for them. And then take Middle East domination and just try and squeeze their action rounds a little bit. I think that's probably the better way to go. So now, I mean, they could coup Lebanon, obviously. But short of that, it's going to be, I think, difficult for them to dominate us in Asia this action round. The only way they could really do it, I think, is to decolonize and take 2 non-battlegrounds, which I'm not sure they would do anyway. Like, they may put 1 Thailand, 1 Indonesia, and then 2 in Africa. But if I was them and I was playing decol here, I don't think I would go for Asia domination by going, for instance, 1 Indonesia, 1 Laos, particularly with Defcon at 4. That seems risky. Okay. Interesting. So not a whole lot of ops on their side there that seem to be free, although like no 4 ops have come out so far on either side, which is interesting. I think we'll like the option for us is to try and take another victory point by playing into Pakistan, for example. But I think we'll just play the Asia scoring now, so that we've got the Cambridge 5 influence free, with which our opponent interestingly responded to the Iraq play. Responded to the Lebanon play by taking Iraq. Okay, so now we will use this free influence to... Unfortunately, we don't have we could get blockaded here. I didn't think of that. We mentioned it very early on in the turn, but then neglected to mention it thereafter. Let's go into Egypt. Let's go to space, actually. If they've got blockade AR6, they've got blockade AR6. is going to be a bit of a problem for us with Defcon. So we're going to need to reduce Defcon either way, whatever they do. Whether they blockade us or not, we're going to need to reduce Defcon just to avoid ourselves randomly getting realigned out of France, for example, with an unlucky roll. Yeah. So assuming that we don't get blockaded, which we very well could, but that was always a risk with the hand we had, although we could have held de Gaulle to later in the turn rather than, I mean, what did we do with it? When we interventioned, we went Afghanistan, Lebanon. Yeah, it was a bit risky. Okay, well, we dodged the blockade. That's good. They've gone the coup there, which is fair enough. So now the option for us is to allow Defcon to go up or do something like, so basically coup North Korea or coup Iraq are our two options in order to do great Defcon. But the, let's see. I think coupping North Korea is the way to go. Yeah, I mean, if we can deny them presence in Asia, if we get a lucky roll. No, okay, not quite that lucky. So Europe scoring is going to be a little bit awkward, but I think we can probably handle it with Red Scare. Yeah, let's just headline that. I mean, you never want to see that in the early war as the Soviets. And this is interesting. So they've got now the opportunity to play into Thailand. They may duck and cover and give us the VPs. But otherwise, we've got a pretty amazing hand in terms of the actual ops value that we've got. Yep, so they have gone duck and cover. Okay. So good to get Asia out of the way before that then, I think. Now, this is always the tension with US-Japan Pact as to whether you play into Japan and therefore leave it in the deck as a free 4-up for the Soviets in the mid-war, or whether you just event it and get it out of the deck as the US player. The other thing we're going to have to do, obviously, is sort out Europe, but the fact that we've got no rad that we probably want to event, and the fact that we've got both D cards, is worth thinking about here. So they may have Suez Crisis. We're going to have to give them decolonization. Oh, sorry, we don't have to give them decolonization. We can hold desalinization and space decolonization. So that's pretty good. But how do we want to respond to this Asia and this European situation? And what kind of tempo do we want to look for here? So I think if we were to go 1, 2, 3, 4, that means, NASA's in the deck in the early war. So if our opponent wants to coup us here or play NASA, then we get to dump Europe. But if they want to respond by taking European battleground, then we get to consolidate with a better position in the Middle East. And considering that they're under Red Scare, hopefully they're going to want to concentrate on Southeast Asia to utilize the Vietnam Revolt's influence. So yeah, I think this is looking okay. And we may, if we can get away with scoring Europe for neutral here, then that'll be good. We may get blockaded and lose D-Style. If that's the case, that's the case. But at least that's a good thing for us to hold to the end of the turn anyway, which removes some of the threat of blockade. But it also means that if we are successful in holding that through to next turn, they're not going to get blockade. Okay, well, I think that's an okay outcome in both senses here, in that we now get to coup, I think, to get some mill-ups and reduce Defcon. we're going to have to give them Arab-Israeli war, so they're going to get their mill-ops anyway. And the Israel influence is going to be vulnerable. The other question, though, is if we do that, we're basically giving up on NORAD. But if we don't do it, then Iran is vulnerable to a coup and we may lose Middle East presence altogether to Arab-Israeli war. So I think that is the right thing to do. And then try and get rid of the Europe scoring card next AR if we can, and with NORAD if necessary. Hoping that they don't have enough free ops to be able to fight us for the Mediterranean battlegrounds in the meantime. I think that's probably right, because it's about, like what's urgent there, and it is urgent for us to take the coup to protect Iran. But we also then evened up the Middle East in case they had the scoring card, which they did. So that's really good for us to get that out of the way, and then we get to score Europe, which is fine. 1 VP we can give them, and then we may yet activate NORAD, I think. We might instead try and even up Pakistan, but I think if we activate NORAD, take Egypt with Arab-Israeli war, space decol, then next turn we can look to... Okay, they're just looking for VPs and mill-ups. Interesting. Because we are going to give them Arab-Israeli war, so I don't really care too much about that. But let's go influence into Egypt, trigger that war. Yep. And then I think we will event NORAD here. It's unfortunate that we can't get an influence into Thailand or somewhere a little more relevant this turn, but if you can get NORAD active from turn 2 and have it active into the mid-war, it allows you to do things like be a bit more pesky in North Korea, be a bit more pesky in Thailand, for example. They overprotect Thailand anyway, but yeah, I think we'll event it. Okay, so we lost the D-Stal. That happens, but at least now blockade is we're a bit less likely to lose to Europe control. Got that VP. Yeah, so look, I mean, anytime you get a great hand like that, we had 3 4-ups, including Red Scare, and we were able to score Europe for neutral. We've redrawn NATO. We haven't redrawn D-Stal, so they may have it, but having Truman Doctrine and a reasonable number of ops gives us the opportunity to threaten Eastern Europe. They've got Warsaw Pact, but yeah, I think headlining East European unrest here is a pretty big threat, to be honest. We can take away control in 3 countries. We can then Truman Doctrine them, at least force them to, use the Warsaw Pact for the event. So, look, I mean, it's a little bit of a risk in the sense that there were 3 of our good ops in what is quite a difficult hand, but I think hopefully it'll put them on the back foot enough that it'll allow us to cope with what is a little bit of an awkward hand for us. The slightly awkward thing potentially is that we don't have a great coup target, so even if they don't take the coup on action round 1, we don't necessarily have a way to capitalize on that. But even just giving ourselves the opportunity to, for instance, coup Lebanon, we could do that if we were feeling generous with Comic-Con, but that would give them back, obviously, what we just took away with East European unrest. So hopefully they take the action round, for example, to patch up Eastern Europe, whether it's with Warsaw Pact or something else, and then we can get some mill-ups by coupping Lebanon, or potentially coupping Iraq if we do decide that protecting our battlegrounds in the Middle East is more important. So they've had IP war once. It is back in the deck, so it could be back in their hand. I'm starting to feel like if Iran stays in our hands now, we might move into Pakistan. Okay, interesting. So they went with playing Warsaw Pact, but not eventing it, so that it is still in the deck, but it's not coming back till turn 7. So we have got Truman Doctrine. We have also got no red active. So I think we will be going into North Korea this turn, probably. They've still got the China card. We'll probably hold off on Comic-Con till a little later in the turn. We'll probably play SocGov as an empty action round. We did end up putting US-Japan back in the deck, which is a little bit awkward for Korean War purposes. I feel like with Defcon where it is, I don't like eventing Korean War and then cooing, so I think we'll hold back on that. It's probably going to have to be a Comic-Con coup or a Truman Doctrine coup. I kind of want to try and play around Truman Doctrine, so we might coup Lebanon with Comic-Con, but then that doesn't degrade Defcon and doesn't protect Iran. So it's a bit of a tough one. If only Korean War was the original version, which did degrade Defcon. The other option, of course, is to coup Iraq. That's really our only other option in terms of trying to degrade Defcon. Coupping Lebanon for 3 does give us a non-battleground, but it means they get a coup back on Iran. But it is the VPs for Milops, so it's a bit tough as to what we should do here. We do get to get both the France attack cards out of the deck this turn, though, which is kind of nice. I think we'll coup Lebanon, and they can test ban coup Iran if they want to. Because at least we've deprived them of being able to score domination in the Middle East again. And then we need to try and patch up Asia, I think, with the rest of these cards. So maybe the answer was that expecting to be able to Truman Doctrine them out of one of their battlegrounds in Europe this turn is a bit too greedy, given what a difficult hand we have and how many things we have to manage. I'm just going to check my sound, make sure that I'm not getting anything extra coming in through the headphones. No, good. Nothing worse than getting to the end of the recording and realizing that there was some other feedback happening. So it was good that we managed to get our opponent to spend a card in an action round doing what we were effectively going to give them with Comic-Con anyway. Makes me feel a little bit more confident and comfortable about our East European unrest headline there. It would be nice to be able to move into Angola, but I think we've got so many problems in Europe that we're going to have to just spend the rest of this turn managing those and potentially spacing Korean War. Yep. I mean, that's the other thing. We could have looked for victory points by coupping Iraq instead of Lebanon. As in, look for the Milops victory points by coupping Iraq instead of Lebanon, and then spacing Korean War, and saying to them that if they didn't have a way to gain their own Milops from their own hands, then we weren't going to give them to them. But we'll see how this works out. Hopefully it's not too successful a coup on Iran. Because remember, we do have the NORAD protection as well. So if they do roll a 1, we still get to recontrol. That is if they use test ban for the coup. Okay, space racing special relationship, interesting. Let's go with a coup then. It's not going to be Not going to be one of the France cards. I think we'll probably just coup with Truman Doctrine here now, because I think that it's going to be a slow burn in Europe. We're going to have to rely on NORAD to let us come back there. Although maybe they are not cooing because they're scared of NORAD. I mean, that's the other interesting thing here. So do we then play into that fear by putting one in Italy? Maybe that's the way to go. So like the options are we play one into Italy and then, for instance, play 2 into Pakistan. The issue then is we don't actually have the cards to make good on our threat, because we don't have another 3-up to flip Italy if they do coup us. So I don't love that. If we could make good on the threat, I think I'd feel more comfortable with it. But we don't. It also means that we can't eat socialist governments this turn if we do it that way. And with Europe unscored, I'm just not prepared to take that risk. I think maybe we could just do De Gaulle. No, I think we do need to be more aggressive. It's just a matter of where. This hand is just a problem in terms of tempo. Do we just coup? I mean, the other option, of course, is to coup. Oh, we can make good on our threat because we've got Truman Doctrine. What am I thinking about? Okay. So if we go 1, we can, for instance, play Korean War and then try and Truman Doctrine them out that way. So if we go 1, 2, and then go into Libya. I think that's the right way to do it. Because now if they coup Egypt, it's not as advantageous. If they coup Libya, we still get to flip Italy, so they're just not going to do that. It's not enough of a prize. We could have potentially played into Angola. And again, if they, for instance, they could play into India here, I suppose. But I think this just shows NORAD can be quite interesting, creating that little Defcon dance. So they do play into India. Interesting. Well, they know we've got Truman, so that's an interesting play. Perhaps they're expecting that we've got the other France attack cards, and that's why they're doing it. I think we will event Korean War here. Will we? No, we don't. We really don't want to give them those mill-ups. If we let them take 2, then they still control France is the problem. So 1, 2, 3. Sorry, they still dominate Europe because they can take 1 or 2 out of the UK that we can't repair this turn. So Suez Crisis, this action round is out. Socialist governments we can't play. So we are actually going to have to play Korean War this turn now that we've gone for the Italy Gambit. So let's just event that. Thankfully it fails. So we can go retake France, just because even though we've got Truman Doctrine and we want to bait them, we can't leave it hanging. And then we'll go 1 into South Korea. Actually, we'll go 1 into Pakistan. So we'll go 1 there, 1 there. Yeah, and they can flip Pakistan with the China card if they want. Yeah, I think that's the right way to do it. I mean, we don't know what scoring card they have, if they have any. But at least this way we're giving ourselves the maximum chance to prevent Europe domination. Okay, Marshall Plan. Presumably with UN intervention. Yeah, okay. Well, there goes South Korea. That's sad. So we'll just do these empty action rounds now. At least keep Truman Doctrine up as an option. if they try and pressure us in the next couple. We might hold Suez Crisis over to next turn. It'd be nice to be able to hold Truman over to next turn, though, just because it does give us a little bit more threat viability on Italy. But we'll see how we go. Okay, so they're going to Africa. Fair enough. We'll just space race socialist governments. And with the success, I think we'll just go ahead and space Suez Crisis here. Since we know that they're not going to be able to go to space, and then hold Truman Doctrine over to next turn, just to kind of hold that over their heads and make them a little more uneasy about Defcon. The other thing to think about, though, is that if we don't reduce Defcon this turn, we don't get the NORAD bonus. So I may end up couping Algeria with Truman Doctrine to keep it in the deck, pardon me, and just allow us to place a free influence in Italy. I think that could be worthwhile here. But we'll see whether they take the coup anyway. Killing it with Truman Doctrine does feel a bit funny, but I think it still serves the purpose of protecting our battlegrounds elsewhere on the board by restoring Italy to being a place where there are only 2 ops ahead of us. So we haven't played into Costa Rica, filled up Panama, or played into Angola, which are all things as the US in the early war, if you do have a surplus of ops, you like to do. And although we got quite lucky with the distribution of the 4 ops, like we got 4 out of the 5. In fact, did we end up getting 5? No, we just got 4, even though we drew NATO twice. So we got 3 out of the 5, and we drew one of them, another one twice. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so they're going for Africa domination. That's interesting. I think we will... it's kind of 50-50 here. Part of me wants to space this Suez just to improve our hand, but I think that we're then risking Pakistan to a coup. We're risking Pakistan to being flipped with the China card anyway next turn. But I think we'd rather coup Algeria. Oh, no, with this. But let's see. If we were to coup with the Suez Crisis, we lose 2 in France and go to 3-2, which we can then upgrade to 4-2. But we lose Israel, we lose UK presence. We lose UK control. I'd almost rather do that and encourage them to fight us for France next turn, or let us repair France. Yeah, maybe let's do that. Let's just trigger this, get it out of the way, hold on to Truman Doctrine. I think that's the right way to go. You know, if they draw Europe scoring, we're not going to be able to prevent the domination anyway by putting the 1 into Italy with NORAD here. But this way, assuming that we don't get quagmired in the headline phase, which would be extraordinarily tragic after eventing NORAD in the early war and taking Canada, at least this way it'll allow us to repair France. So coup Algeria, rolled well, and we get the NORAD influence into France. So, a pretty good hand, really. Can't complain about this. So we've got a few important cards for us. We've got colonial rearguards and puppet governments, which are 2 that we'd love to see arrive on turn 4. We've got Allende, which is a little bit more of a problem to manage, and destalinization, which we're just going to send to space. We do have Us Not, though, so we could get rid of these 3 cards if we wanted to, but we'll probably try and hold that over, I think. In any event, let us headline colonial rearguards, because it causes even more problems for them in terms of coups. Okay, puppet governments is now going to be a little more important, but it's probably kind of good that we didn't event it. Yeah, I mean, Panama's going to get couped here to degrade Defcon, but that's okay. So we don't get NORAD this turn, but at least we get to a pretty strong position in Africa. And we get to have the NORAD threat, assuming, again, that we don't get quagmired. We get to have the NORAD threat in Thailand for next turn, as well as in Italy. So no scoring cards for us. We can move towards Africa control, depending on what happens here. A little bit low on ops. We may end up playing U2 incident, especially if we're going to hold on to Arsenat. Puppet governments could be useful if we do need the mill-ops. Although we can actually get them from a Saharan states coup here, which is not bad. Using Sadat in this instance to coup Saharan states is actually pretty nice for us. Okay, so a bad coup for them. So we've got the jump in space when we can use desalinization for that. We get the opportunity to get the jump on South America as well with puppet governments, assuming that they don't go into Brazil this action round. And then we get to hopefully look to move to Africa domination with the Sadat coup on Saharan states. Asia and Southeast Asia are problems, so we will want to play, I mean, with 3 influence we can show up 3 victory points here and also combat their Asia domination. So that's probably going to be something that we're going to want to do. It doesn't negate their Asia domination completely, but it puts us within striking distance. So that may be where our U2 incident influence goes this turn, for example, if we don't use it to consolidate the puppet governments, which we may also do. If they fill up India, we might also take the 1 in 3 on IP war. Wouldn't be too bad. Hello to our stream watchers on Twitch. Those of you who have joined us, good to have your company. So Africa scoring out of the way makes the Saharan states coup a little less urgent, but it also makes it less likely that they're going to be flipping Nigeria with a 3 ops card. So let's go ahead and raise the stakes with puppet governments. Now, we've already got access to Greece from Italy, so we need to go there. We're going to go to Argentina. The question is, do we want to go into Chile, try and take it to combat Allende, or do we want to just take Argentina, event Allende, and then try and realign at +1? Or we wouldn't be at +1, we'll realign at even. I think that's probably better. Don't think we need puppet governments into Saudi Arabia. Although maybe we do want to go there, since we don't currently have access because we're not in Iraq or Jordan. I'm kind of keen to take a free influence in Indonesia though. So really I think it comes down to, Indonesia or Saudi Arabia. I think let's take Indonesia for now. Nah, that's just worse. Argentina, Brazil, Saudi Arabia. This scoring is probably, like, it could be more urgent in terms of Southeast Asia scoring being around the corner and us wanting to defray Asia scoring, but we don't have access to Saudi Arabia immediately, whereas we do to Indonesia. So I think using a card like puppet governments, it's more worthwhile. Even though the Indonesia influence is slightly more urgent, it's more worthwhile to take the access, I think, although it's really close. Brezhnev, yep, okay. Interesting. So not taking Brazil, but challenging us for it. I think we'll use the Indo-Pakistani War. We will use it for the event, or I would like to. So let's, and again, that coup on Saharan states is just less important now that Africa scoring's out for the next few turns. So let's go one into Argentina, I think, so that we can try for this Allende play in the next action round. And just to give ourselves presence in South America as well. Because while our opponent was the only one with presence, we're just giving up victory points that we don't need to in the event that they do have the scoring card. We also want to repair this Europe position at some point. I might just honestly end up eventing Truman Doctrine. No, it's probably important enough to keep in the deck. I think I'll probably just play it to retake France. It's not that worth kicking them out as opposed to just retaking it, I don't think. The margin is just not there. But I'm like, one thing I am pleased about is how many countries we've managed to get influence in. You know, really all of the 3 key countries that you'd want them in for NORAD. Having the one in Italy, one in Thailand, and one in South Korea really makes Defcon management quite painful for the Soviets until Quagmire comes out. Okay, so they may have South America scoring by the looks of things, and they may be just looking for a reline, but we are going to go for this Allende play because we just have to, because I do want to hold Astronaut for next turn. So let's just give it a go. Well, we got lucky. That's nice. You got to try in order to succeed with these things, but I am pretty happy with that result because it means that now we can U2 incident into Chile. I am still tossing out whether it's more worthwhile to go here, but if we were to U2 incident into Chile, it gives us the opportunity. Oh, we'll see if this succeeds. It does. So it kicks us out. That is unfortunate. Now what do we want to do? So our opponent has gone to great lengths to stop us from being able to cause them immediate problems in these battlegrounds, but I'm pretty happy, since we have Truman Doctrine, to go one here, because it really demands one more from them before the end of the turn. But it means that we have to hold Truman Doctrine. And it does mean also that we need to play Ask Not or U2 Incident. Well, if we're holding Truman Doctrine, it means we need to play Ask Not this turn. So, yes. Good that Salt Negotiations is out of the way now, though, so we can more safely play D-Style. Perhaps we'll use U2 Incident to put 2 in Italy. Do we want to do that? I mean, that's pretty high stakes. We might as well do it later in the turn, I think. We're giving them a lot in South America here by doing this, though. Maybe we just coup Uruguay. That feels pretty bad. We could play into Venezuela to just make the realign less attractive, or play into Uruguay, for that matter. Yeah, I don't mind that so much. Let's do that. I think we'll play into Uruguay, play into Brazil. We're going to space D-Style. We've got kind of a few cheeky things up our sleeve here, depending on what our opponent's got. Like, they've played some pretty heavy cards. Like, they've played ABM, Treaty, and Junta already this turn, and 2 favourable 3-up cards. So given the balance in the mid-war deck and the fact that we've got a lot of red events out of the way early on in this game, I'm kind of feeling okay about where this is heading in terms of what the likely cards they are to have in their hand, and if they don't have a glut of blue events, the likelihood that they are going to draw some next turn and have a few difficult things to manage. And I think we managed the difficult things for ourselves last turn without losing all that much tempo. Particularly the fact that we were able to eat that Suez Crisis and de Gaulle in one turn without losing France. Okay, well, I think we can probably afford to leave South America hanging a little bit there and just space D-style, because like we're going to do that anyway. It's unfortunate. Really would like to get those VPs. They are so crucial in terms of close games. It's such a big swing to get to man in Earth orbit first. Man in space first. Yeah, okay. I think now we'll just play into Venezuela. And then see what they've got. If they've got the scoring card, it's not great for us, but they surely haven't got another good card. Otherwise, that would be one of the great hands of all time. Okay. Well, at least we can make things difficult for them here. So we're going to take some... They've at least got presence in the Middle East, which they had to play for there. Well, that's good. We'll play the event here just for the mill-ops and the 1 in 3. Well, we got the 1 in 3. Nice. Okay, well, this is a little more awkward. At least we've got Quagmire, so we know that we are going to get the favourable NORADs for a little bit longer. We've also got OAS Founded, which is probably going to be our headline here. Although since we've got Asia scoring, I'm also interested in Nixon takes the China card followed up by Isuri, but that does take up pretty much all of our playable ops this turn. The other option is to dump one of these scoring cards, but we need to do a bit of repair work before we dump either of those. So, yeah, I think it's probably going to be OAS Founded. And then if they don't degrade Defcon, we get to have a reasonably favourable coup, probably with OPEC. Yeah, because we are behind in that region, so we're just going to have to be a little more careful. And if we take India here, then we're safe in Asia, so that's good. Okay, interesting. So they're pretty desperate to avoid the NORAD situation. And we're going to want to use our playable ops, I think, to just actually score VPs in the Middle East. So let's go... One in Chile, one in Venezuela, I think, is the way to go. It just forces them to play there. We are going to be a bit short on ops. But, I mean, them denying themselves the coup every turn just to avoid NORAD is not too bad for us, but the problem is we just haven't had the ops in the mid-war yet. You know, we had a lot of low ops cards last turn, and cards we have to manage, and this turn we've got a whole lot of scoring cards. Yeah, that sucks. Okay. Well, let's go with 1, 2, 3, and just say, okay, if you can succeed on the rear lines, That's fine. And at which point we'll just dump the scoring card and cut our losses. But realigning a country with your own influence in it is fraught with danger, even if you are at +1. So let's see. Coup, okay. Interesting. Well, we will definitely dump the scoring card now because 4 VPs is a loss that I'm happy to take there, and we can fix up the remainder of that later. And then we can pivot our attention to trying to get an additional 2 VPs out of the Middle East with this OPEC. And then hopefully trying to negate their Asia domination with Nixon. But I think we'll do the Nixon play first. Let's just see where they now pivot their attention. We've got the defensive options for Europe still. So it may well be that they play the China card here to take India, which would be a little unfortunate, to be honest. No, okay, they're playing Muslim Revolution. Not taking India. Okay. No, they are putting one there, though. Okay. Well, we'll cop the VPs from OPEC to negate this Asia issue. They may take Japan. Who knows? Particularly if they've drawn US-Japan this turn. China card in Japan right now would not be too bad at all, to be honest. Pakistan, of course. A far easier option than Japan. At which point, I think we probably have to cop it, really. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. We'll hold it till the end of the term, just in case they have US-Japan pact and they need to play it. And we'll just take... where do we want these influence? One in... We'll just go Libya, France. And then we'll use Truman Doctrine to coup Saharan states, I think. Because we do want to try and repair this Europe situation at some point. So we get 5, they get 5. Is that right? Yeah. So space, Quagmire. We might as well score, I think. We'll score Middle East. No, they get 6 now from there. That was the advantage to scoring Asia first, of course, was that we could take advantage of the shuttle diplomacy to negate their domination, but once that was gone, it's kind of a wash either way. They could break us somewhere in Asia if they were really feeling like it, but don't really see that happening here. Okay, interesting. So we'll space that, get out of the way. Oof, we cannot hit that man in space, can we? I think that's both of our games. We've just been stuck on this spot in the space race. Very frustrating. So they'll go to 2 VPs ahead from the Asia scoring. it's going to get to the point, hopefully, like unless they draw beautifully and they get Cuban Missile Crisis next turn, where they're going to have to coup eventually, or give us the coup. And if they give us the coup, then we'll be pleased to take it, I think, at this point. So done discarding. But it is getting to the point where we've had a sort of 3 bad turns in a row now, in terms of ops in our hand, and we're getting so far behind on the board that the threat of no-rad is not enough, because there's so many places that we're behind. The Middle East is not one of them. So we've got to play the edge of scoring. Don't forget to do that. And now we've got 2 other ugly scoring cards coming our way. What do we want to headline here? So we've got this for space. We've got Bear Trap, which could give us the coup, and will it allow us to the other option is just to brush war Italy straight up in the headline phase on a 4+. But we also maybe want to brush war Thailand on a 4+ this turn, so we're kind of got to think about that. At least we have options. If we bear trap, the question is, can we definitely take Italy? And the answer is no, because we're going to have to bear trap, spend 4 influence putting 2 in there, and that's just then it's only if they fail on the bear trap that we can get in there. I kind of think Brush War opens up our turn the most. Voice of America is also good, in that it lets us get them out of Laos, Vietnam, and 1 out of Thailand. Meaning that if they coup, we get to flip Thailand. It also removes some... we could just get rid of Laos. So we could get Laos, 2 out of Thailand, and then 1 out of somewhere else. I think that's probably the way to go. I think we'll just headline Voice of America. Okay, well, that's a little annoying, but at least we have some good events. So 1, 2, 3. So everywhere scored except Europe. We'll take 1 out of Venezuela. See what they do here. Red Scare's annoying, because it means we kind of have to eat Decol or play the China card. And I'm not really keen on Decol, so it's probably going to be the China card. But yeah, it depends on what happens here with what they choose to repair. Presumably they'll repair Southeast Asia since it's unscored. But that does give us the coup. And if we get that, we'll use Cuban Missile Crisis, probably to coup Venezuela. But if they just straight up repair Thailand, we might brush war Thailand as well. That's the other option. If they repair Thailand and play into Laos, well, that's pretty annoying. Then we'll probably just brush war Italy. Okay, well, they've got all the influence that they could want. That is very sad. So much for that. I think we're going to have to cop a fair few more victory points this turn, but we'll just play Southeast Asia to get out of the way, I think. Although we can just play 2... we can break Thailand by coupping. I think we'll do that. So we'll coup with Cuban Missile Crisis on Angola. And we'll place 1 in Thailand. I mean, they've got to be running out of good cards at some point, right? I guess they had to play our main intake round last turn, but they've got both of their 4-ups and Red Scare in the mid-war, plus ABM Treaty and Hunter. At least we got Brush War. And we did have a couple of good events to start off the mid-war, so... But yeah, the ops just really haven't been there for us, and getting Red Scared this turn was not ideal. So what's this going to be? Okay. So they are committing to repairing Thailand, but at least we got mill ops and denied them some. Brazil is in great danger of being realigned, but it would be nice to bear trap at the end of the turn. So the question is, do we China card to take Philippines, Indonesia, and maybe break Thailand for one more action round? Or, because we're not going to be spacing this turn, so that's too bad, so sad, and we are going to probably want to play the China card. So I think that's probably the way to go, because otherwise we do give them decol, and that's pretty sad. Playing the China card for 4 is pretty sad, but giving them decol is also terrible for us right now, given the state of Africa and also how important this is going to be to our recovery in the late war if we are to try and claw our way back on victory points. And also I think those 2 VPs that we pick up in the Philippines and Indonesia, considering that they weren't able to stabilize Thailand and take Malaysia last turn, which would have been, I think, the optimal play. And they must have some blue cards hiding in there somewhere, even though we've drawn a lot of the good ones. Yeah, I think that was the right play. And certainly, what was it looking like? I think it was 5 VPs. Yeah, I mean, we just brought it back 4 by that play. So we may end up having to score it for 3 if they retake Thailand here. But hey, you know, they had to give us Japan, so that's okay. Alright, well, we had to score it for 5 anyway, but we got Japan out of it, and we stopped them from being able to play that 4-up somewhere else where it might have hurt us. So we'll go with this. Things are getting a little bit scary for us now. We're going to hopefully pull some back on mill ops, assuming that they don't have a war. And that they don't just kind of randomly coup Uruguay or something. One small step is, I mean, it's going to be really sad if they get to man in space this turn, but at least we get to man in Earth orbit first, because we can probably do that over playing it for 1-op. We've really got to hope that this brush war on Italy succeeds. That's the key now. Okay, oof, that hurts. Well, I think that's going to be a coup, isn't it? We'll just have to finally, this Truman's going to get shuffled back anyway, so let's just hope that we kick them out and don't give them a good coup target. Here goes. Yeah, well, I mean, if they want to coup a 3 influence Nigeria, then so be it. At least we get a VP back for it. I mean, they get their mill ups, so it's not great. Well, they rolled really well. That's unfortunate. I think we're going to have to coup it again because we just can't afford to give up control there. Yeah. Whew. All right. Well, that was lucky. We don't get the 1 small step if they do go to space here, but that's okay. But we are going to have to play brush war now. Anyway, they got it first try. That's unfortunate. Let's hope we roll well here. Come on, 4, 5, 6. Yes. Ooh. That is a big break for us. I think if we didn't get that, it was pretty much all over. Whew. Not only do we save 5 VPs, we actually get to hopefully claw one back. And then, yeah, bear trap next turn could be a nice one. Could let us, for instance, flip Thailand. If they roll poorly, you know, could let us flip any of the key smaller battlegrounds in which we have influence. So that's nice. Like, we could coup somewhere in South America, put our narrate influence in Thailand. I mean, this is all assuming that we don't get quagmired in the headline phase and they don't degrade Defcon. So there's a lot of ifs there. But quagmire definitely, NORAD, definitely putting in a bit of work for us this game. Even though it hasn't given us heaps of influence, I think it's messed with our opponent's coups a bit, which is probably shown by the fact that we've held on to Iran for the whole game. It has not been couped once, which does not happen in a lot of games of Twilight Struggle. And if we can redraw Indo-Pakistani War, that's looking like a pretty juicy target as well, I have to say. Okay, interesting. Nuclear subs, eh? Well, we don't get to make use of it, so we'll just go ahead and score that. Unfortunate situation developing here in Central America. Also unfortunate that we've drawn CIA and grain sales, because it would have been nice for our opponent to have those. We'll try here. Oh, and we've drawn Lone Gunman. Ugh, yuck. Which will probably play, I think, in action round 1. Do we bear trap or do we grain sales? I think maybe we hold over grain sales. This is yuck. Do not like this hand. Lone Gunman is a little more attractive if they don't have a Defcon degrader, obviously. Whereas if they do, we are in a little bit of trouble. John Paul is a useful event. I mean, they're all useful events. We don't have a way to increase Defcon though, so this Lone Gunman is a problem if we get our hands attacked in any way, but I'm not sure there is a way for them to. Look, we don't want to coup in the headline phase. We just want to deny them opportunities. Okay. So they've gone for VPs and the Defcon degrader. Fair enough. So Lone Gunman is hanging around. They've drawn all of their 4-up cards, but at least we forced them, well, the situation forced them to use We Will Bury You in the headline phase rather than for the free operations. So we're going to have to hold Lone Gunman. We're not going to be able to hold any of our good stuff. We're also going to have to cop Shay, which doesn't actually do anything other than let them coup Uruguay. So we'll use Shay to probably... I don't really want to use that to coup Guatemala. Action round 1. We can cause them problems in Europe with JP. We've got to space this turn. We don't need to coup right now. But I think let's start off with this. Just to cause our opponent hopefully a couple of problems. Now, we can use Shay to coup Colombia, for example. but we'd have to roll really well to flip it. Probably more keen to just go for some realigns on Angola, probably. Might just event grain sales since... Who knows what we'll hit. Yeah, 5-year plan, let's play it. So there's no CIA created. There is duck and cover though, so we probably won't event it. Yeah, let's just place some influence. Place influence. Now we'll go Greece for the Europe domination, and a little bit concerned about the South America position, but want to try and consolidate in Africa. So let's go 1 into South Africa for now. They do have South African unrest this turn, it's worth remembering. So we don't want to just spend 3 ops flipping Angola. We also don't really want to put too much into trying for the realignment there, because they can just flip it back with South African unrest. But what else have they got? Kitchen debates, of course, we knew about that because we saw it off the top of the deck. Okay, we lost 2 that we can replace with Shay, I think. So we'll trigger that off now before we start playing into any non-battlegrounds. And then I think we will just replace in Brazil and play in South Africa. Oh, okay, well that's unfortunate. Replay in Brazil and place in South Africa, so that at least we've got a realignment there. Probably should have evented CIA created earlier in the turn as well, just to give ourselves more of an idea of where things are at for them in their hand. And we need to sort out this position in Asia as well. Okay, well, I think that is actually pretty good for us now that we know that's gone. So we can go 1. I think we'll event this. Your intervention, Fidel Summit. Well, Fidel's going to be very, very annoying, isn't it? That makes our John Paul pretty good, though. The fact that that's their remaining hand. Means we can play defectors. I mean, we still don't get to realign Angola this turn. So we probably won't play defectors, actually, because they're going to use their 1 influence or their 1 op cards to try and realign us out of Brazil, in all likelihood. But if we can play JP here... Oh, they cooed, okay. Coming back in Saharan states, interesting. Well, we will coup that again with defectors, I think, in our last action round, but first we're going to do this. Just to threaten that. I mean, you know, Chernobyl's coming next turn, tear down this wall. We can at least threaten the Europe control victory. We're going to have to do something here to start getting back some VPs, because this situation in the Americas is not good. We just have not... I don't think we've drawn any 4-ops card in the mid-war, have we? We had the China card once. But yeah, we just have not had any really attractive ways to flip these South American countries. All right, interesting. I mean, you know, Warsaw Pact is still out there, but we could draw it. We didn't event Truman Doctrine either, I don't think. So, yeah, that's a potential problem for them. I think we'll coup Saharan states again, though. Even though Poland is a lot of victory points, that domination is also worth 3 victory points. So, and we know that all they've got in hand is UN intervention here. Unfortunately, we're going to have to go to space in our last action round, which is never fun. But at least Voice of America is back in the deck, isn't it? Yeah, we headlined it last turn. It's always unfortunate as the US when grain sales comes out turn 3. We do have to obviously be careful of that. Perhaps could have couped Guatemala instead. Maybe that would have been the more defensive play. Because now if they draw Central America scoring and headline it, we could be in a lot of trouble. Okay, well, let's space there. Still can't get the man in space. Just will not happen. So do we headline Junta? Do we headline East European unrest? I mean, it's potentially greedy to headline East European unrest rather than Europe scoring. But it also gives us an opportunity to play for domination if they don't kill us. Whereas if we headline Europe scoring, we can't die in the headline phase. Ooh, that's pretty rough. Do we reckon they've got it? I mean, what difference does East European unrest make? It almost lets us deprive of presence in Europe, but it doesn't quite. So it gets us probably Poland, puts them down to 2 in East Germany. I'm not sure that's good enough. I think we have to go Junta here, as much as it pains me to say. Did we get rid of Quagmire again last turn? No. I think we have to go Junta. We can always event East European unrest. Yeah, this is safer. Oh, scoring. Oh my gosh. The amount of times that I've played as US and had turn 8, my one favorable scoring card taken with Aldridge Ames remix is far too high. The number is far too high. Ladies and gentlemen. I think we also die now to Lone Gunman, which is very unfortunate, because we also have no other way to raise Defcon. So I think whatever we did there, we were probably dead. To Aldridge Ames. So our opponent knew we had Lone Gunman, so, you know, good on them for headlining Aldridge Ames. We don't have the China card. We had no opportunity to get rid of Lone Gunman last turn. And we certainly don't have an opportunity with this hand to get rid of it. So I think that's probably it. I mean, I think as long as they don't take Lone Gunman, we're pretty much dead to Defcon. Which is always unfortunate, since there's really only one card as the US that can kill you reliably for Defcon. And we drew it on turn 7. Couldn't get rid of it. Because, yeah, we had no way to combat the headlined We Will Bury You. And I don't think there was, I mean, we didn't even really have the opportunity other than holding the China card over. But since we were purged, that would have meant playing Decal, which was, you know, pretty rough the turn before. Let's go here and just hope that they do not degrade Defcon. Let's see what happens. I'm sure that a player of Felix's character is going to, caliber I should say, is going to realize that they just need to degrade Defcon here to win the game. But we'll see what happens. I think it was probably going to be difficult for us to... Oh no, with a good turn that turn, we could have made it back. We could have made it back in time for the late war, like assuming that they didn't have Central America scoring, which they didn't. But really, it's all a moot point now, I think. So I think that's fine. We'll call the GG. Because just we'll take another look at our hand. I have thought, as you saw recently in other games, I've thought that I was dead to Defcon when I actually wasn't, but I think this time I am well and truly dead. So thank you all for watching. Sad that it came to this, but it is going to have to be thermonuclear war for the loss. So we'll see you for the next game, which will actually be in the next tournament. The International Twilight Struggle League will be restarting. What do we want to coup on our way out? Let's even things up in South America. Oh, we tried. Well, thanks for watching. I've been Jesse for The Winning Agenda. Don't forget to hit subscribe on YouTube if you enjoyed the coverage, and we'll see you next time for the next tournament. It's been great to be with you. See ya.